Hello and welcome back to my live stream. If you're just tuning in, then I have been working on Create React blog and MDXloader today. I just had a bit of a break to let my computer cool down because it's an old little thing, but I'm back up now, and so I'm going to do some work on MDXloader. So just to go into what I'm actually doing at the moment. So I am currently building Create React blog, which is it's a little static blog generator based on React, Create React app, MDX, Navi, and if it looks familiar, it's because it uses the theme from Dan Abramoff's Overreacted.io. So I've added some features in the previous video, which you can take a look at. So today I've added some features like next and previous indicators. I've added the footer down the bottom. I've added a few features, but what I want to add now is I want to add this reading time indicator, which Dan has on his blog. So I want to compute the amount of time, or roughly the amount of time that this blog article is going to take to read, and add that to my blog generator. And I also want to add line highlighting to the examples. And doing this is going to require some changes to MDXloader, which is a Webpack loader which takes markdown files and turns them into JSX components. So let's dive into that. So I'm going to start with the reading time indicator. So I think from memory that the way that this is computed in Gatsby, which is what Overreacted.io uses, is it's part of the actual MDXloader itself, possibly. But let's just look for Gatsby reading time. That's going to be the easiest thing to do. Oh, there we go. Gatsby remark reading time. Yeah, so this is what it was. So if I have a look at the source for this, then I think there's like a reading time package. Oh, I don't even need to look at the source. Here it is right here. So we have this reading time function which takes some text and returns an estimated reading time. And I'm going to add that to MDXloader. And then I'm going to use the estimated reading time that is added to the MDX file's output to display an estimated reading time indicator like this one. Okay, so first I'm going to have to add that reading time package to MDXutil, or to MDXloader. So let's go yarn add reading time. And while that's working, so I'm going to bring up MDXutil source, and I currently have this linked into this page. So any changes I make to this should change the build system which is being used to build this page. So I'm just going to import, actually not in rehype Prism. All of my stuff is happening here. So I'm going to import reading time. And I'm going to take a look at how Gatsby does this, because I don't know if I just want to apply reading time to the MDX document by itself, or if I want to do some processing on it first. Oh, this is the different one. So let me Google for the source for Gatsby remark reading time and take a look at how it's done there. Okay, so raw markdown body, that's easy. So we're just going to apply this reading time function to the entire markdown file, and I think that should be fairly easy to do. So the way a Webpack loader works is it takes the source for the file that you're loading, and then you return the new source basically, and you can do whatever you want on that source. So here I'm actually using MDX to parse it and turn that into JSX, but I can also just apply the reading time function to the actual markdown source itself, and then just export it. In like the transformed source. And to do that, I'm just going to use json.stringify, just in case it doesn't return a number. I don't know what it returns. This is the safest way to do it. And that should give us the reading time. So let's give this a try. So I'm going to have to just restart the server. Oops. Sorry about that noise. And then in order to actually check that that's worked, I'm going to need to try and take a look at what that reading time variable that's exported is. So to do that, so how is that content being loaded? So I've in the Create React blog, all of the content is loaded as part of this post switch. So I'll just open up that. And so the content, get content. Oh, actually, so it's actually exported by this. This is a problem because get content will use the default export if it's available, whereas this is not part of the default export. I mean, okay. So I think it should be available, so I can just check that the actual reading time function is working, and then I can figure out a better way, a better place to pass it through after that. So let's try this. So let's just open this post whose content I'm changing, and what I want to do is just take a look at what is being output by this. Await is the reserved word. Why is that happening? What have I done? Oops, I think I have broken something here. Await import. Let's just undo this change and make sure. Okay. I don't know, what have I done here? Let x equals await. Oh, it's because I haven't made it an async function. That's a rookie mistake. Okay, so let's take a look and see if the reading time is coming through. Beautiful! So this article is going to take about 1 minute to read. Sounds reasonable. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to figure out a better place to put the reading time, because one of the problems here is if I just say return the module, then what's gonna happen is that Navi will find that this has a default export, and it's just gonna use that as the content instead of making the whole module available, which is not exactly what I want to happen. So so I think maybe I need to make a change to Navi itself here, because this is a problem I run into frequently. The reason I have this behavior is if you take a look at the react.lazy function, which is apparently LZY is, wow, I've jammed up my browser. So there's this react.lazy function. No, I haven't jammed up my browser, it's just my keyboard is Sorry, I need to unplug my keyboard and plug it back in because it sometimes does this to me. The way React.lazy works is you pass in a function just like the one here. You pass in a function which returns a module, and it'll look for the module's default export, and it'll use that as the component. But the problem is that, well, React.lazy only really looks for the default. It doesn't allow you to use any of the rest of the information in the module, whereas Navi does. I mean, you want to use the default export probably, but you might also want to use other exports, like say reading time. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I think I should really have it so you can just return the import like this, and it's going to work, even if there's other exports. But I also want it to just work if you've only got like a default export. So I have two options here. One option is that I can keep it how it is and change each of the getContent functions so that they always return an object with more than just a default property. But the other option is that I can change Navi so that if the content object that is returned has an object with more than just a single default property, then it'll not zoom in, I guess, and only keep the default. Or I have a third option, which is just to get rid of this funny behavior where it looks for the default property. And I think always using the default or never using the default would be the like consistent options, which would be easier to figure out. I kind of wish React.lazy didn't use this funny thing where it only uses the default, because the problem is that React.lazy, I mean, I want this to have to be able to use the same syntax as React.lazy, which just makes this hard. Well, for the moment, reading time works, so I could just do this. So what I can do is I can make like a function that actually, so here's another option, is because this is not actually, this getContent function can return anything, and that can be wrapped when I actually pass it through to navi.createPage, because the place where this behavior is added, so the Navi is the library which adds this behavior where it picks the default. That's not happening in the application code. So since I'm defining this getContent function here before I pass it into createPage, then I can actually transform it here, and I think that's probably the best approach. But then again, this behavior where, you know, like if you add a default, so I'm gonna show you how the problem here. So if document.mdx, for example, just exports something called component, then getContent will the content for the page will be an object with something called component. But if you then rename, or say it has like an extra field, say it has component and it has meter, then the content for the page is going to be an object with two properties, content and meter, just like you'd expect. But then if you change one of those properties to be named default, then suddenly the other one just disappears, and it's just yeah, it's this problem where it's like, do you want to have the same behavior as React.lazy, or do you want it to be consistent? I really don't know which one I want to do. And because I don't know, I'm not going to make any changes to Navi right now. Even though I don't think the current behavior is ideal, I'm just going to wrap this when I pass it to create page. And I'm going to do it that way. So I think I'm going to actually have to change nav content as well. One of the functions or the components, which renders the route content. So let me take a look at that before I change anything. So in a Navi app, nav content renders route content, and that will be probably here. MDX content. Okay, so this is good. This is good. This nav content component, which is exported by, it's imported from React Navi. What that does is it provides access to the current routes or the current page's content through this first argument, which is passed to the render function. And this can be anything. If you don't pass in children render function or a render prop to nav content, then it'll just render this. But since we are passing in a function, we can render it however we like, so it doesn't have to be a component or element. And that's good because that means that we can destructure it. We can say, okay, the content has a reading time and it has a MDX component, something like this. And that way I can render the MDX component and I can pass in the reading time to article meter. And so all I have to do now, this is going to break it, but all I have to do now to fix it is I have to actually make sure that pages get content function is not returning a default property. Again, I think this is like a really inconsistent way of doing it, and I don't like that behavior where having a default property kind of buries everything else, but I'll leave that for another day. So I can just create a new function here. I can say get content is a function that executes get content, waits for the result because it could be a promise, then destructures it and renames the default to MDX component so that we don't hide everything else, and passes for everything else. And you know what, I don't even need to have that extra step there, and then I can just return a function. This has to be an async function too. I can just do this, and that should give me my reading time, and everything else should just continue to work, I hope. Language is assigned a value but never used. What's happening here? Oh, I know, that's, yeah, okay, I know what that is. Okay, and then, what have I done here? I've used this to sort of demonstrate stuff. And then I can go into blog post layout, and I mean I'm already passing reading time through to article meter, which is that component there, so I can probably just open this up, log this to make sure it's getting through. It is. And then I think I can just copy paste down Abramov's code. Where did I put that? I had an editor with overreacted.io. Here it is. Thanks, VS Code. I'm just going to pop this over here so it doesn't keep getting in the way. Okay, and then he has this function in helpers.js which takes the reading time and formats it as a number of coffee cups, which is nice and easy to understand. I think he must drink a lot of coffee because 20-minute article apparently takes 20 minutes, 4 cups, sorry, but I like it. It's very nice. So I'm going to open up Navi where my blog example is, and I'm going to format that reading time. Actually, where else is this being used? Why is it in a helper instead of being just inline? So we've got blog post and index. Okay, so I'm not actually going to put the reading time in the index. If you have a look at overreacted.io, they have it at the top of the actual post, but they also he also has it in the index. But because of the way Navi works, this reading time has to be part of the article content, which means you have to load the whole MDX document to access the reading time, and I don't want to load the content for every article on the index page, so I'm only going to show this on the page itself. That's something I'll be able to fix when I add like one extra function to Navi, but it's not there yet, so it's okay. For the moment, I think this is a reasonable compromise. So reading time, let's just say minutes equals reading time dot minutes. Cups equals minutes over 5. I think for me it would be more like minutes over 45, but that wouldn't be very useful because, you know, all of the articles are just going to be a single or 0 cups. And then where am I going to add this? So I'm going to add a reading time element, and only if the reading time prop exists am I going to set a value for that reading time element. Which can have this bullet as well. That's what bool is. So I can use a fragment, because a fragment lets me specify multiple elements of JSX without actually having to add any unneeded markup. And I can just pass this in, or interpolate. I don't know how you actually say that word, because I'm going to say interpolate it in. Actually, and then I probably just want to wrap this in a span as well, so that I can give a class for it, even if I'm not going to use that right now. So class name equals styles dot reading time. That works. Eureka. Okay. Then I just need to actually, of course, add reading time element in. Why is this not working? What have I done wrong? I've forgotten the closing brace. That's not going to work. Okay, then I just want to add this in at the end. I'm going to put it after the tags, if it exists. Or no, because... Yep. Okay. And then if I refresh the page and take a look, ooh, we've got reading time. That's not how I expected it to work. I think I would like to round that as well. Well, I have just copied and pasted, so I would have thought it would have behaved the same, but apparently not. Maybe the actual time to read. Are they rounding that? That was here. Reading time. Node.time to read, which is probably from some GraphQL somewhere. All markdown remark. Well, I don't know why this is happening as it is. This is time to read and this is reading time, which makes me think that maybe this is actually a different plugin than the one that's being used. But never mind, I don't have to do it exactly the same way as Dan is doing it. I can just do it this way. I can go pass, I can do math.round, and then I can probably, this is going to round to 0, so I want to say minimum of 1 minute. Yep. And then I probably want to apply the, I can just apply cups on that. And I mean, that is going to give me a 0 as well. Let's just check. Oh, okay, yeah, and we've got all 1 here. So that's how it's working there. Okay. The minimum of 1 cup. Huh? Math.min. Oh, oops. Max. Of course. Yeah, I don't want the minimum. I want the maximum. 1 minute read. Okay, we got that working. And knock that one off my list. Add reading time to MDX loader. I should add another item here, which is just publish a new version of MDX loader. And update dependency version. Because it's not much use having this unless it works on more than just my computer on this particular directory. So I'll do that after I've got the line highlights working. So line highlights are this thing again, where I add highlight lines. I roughly know how I'm going to do this. It's just a matter of implementing it. So I'm just going to clean up before I start. Okay, so I have this. So this Gatsby remark PrismDeus plugin or package, which was created by the creator of Gatsby, Kyle Matthews. This contains some logic to inject HTML into the highlighted HTML for code blocks that allows these highlights to be added. So I'm just going to basically reuse Kyle's code here and add that into MDXutil, so anyone using MDX Loader can use this feature. I'm not going to worry about line numbers today because I don't need them. If you're watching this and you'd like line numbers in your blogs, then I would be very happy to accept a pull request, but I'm just going to add line highlighting. So we've got this pass line number range, which I imagine is what's being used. Pass line number ranges, that's a very well named file. And directives.js is the thing which is actually adding these. This is interesting. Pass line, but this is not importing that file. This is using pass numeric range, which is, I think, an npm package. yeah, maybe this is like a dead file which is not used anymore. Let's take a look in highlight code. It's not being used here. Add line numbers, not being used here. Index. Where are we using this? Split language, highlight lines, shown line numbers. Oh, I see. So this isn't actually passing the line number range. It's passing all of the options. Split language, highlight lines. This is maybe not so well a named file after all. Let's take a look at what the options are. So we look for this. I have something like this in front-end Armory. We have different options. Options must look like number lines true or number lines integer. Otherwise we disable line numbering. So we have split language. What the hell is split language? Split language is the language that has been split out. Highlight lines is appears to be a list of like ranges which are probably going to be passed using that package I just took a look at. Show line numbers local is and number lines start out. Yeah, so yeah, this is totally something I could add to MDXloader. Yeah. I mean, it might be nice to just add it since I'm working on MDXloader at the moment. The problem is I don't have tests set up and I want to just add as few features as possible, like only ones I'm actually going to use. I could try and copy across Kyle's tests too. What's the time? Well, there's another 2.5 hours to midnight, so I could I don't think I actually have enough time to add these tests and get everything else I want done. So I'm going to leave these for the moment. I'm just going to add line highlighting and leave line numbers for another day or a pull request. So directives.js. So yeah, I'm just going to assume that everything in that bracket is a range, because I can always extend that later. That's easily backwards compatible if I extend it. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to shut up and do some work. I think I'm already doing something like this. Let's take a look then. Using aliases. This can be configured. Yeah, I really should add configuration again. That's something I can have another day. Oh, that makes sense. So we've got a default language of text. I feel like that's a really good idea. But I'm just going to ignore everything other than line numbers. now I have to check what this Gatsby highlight thing does. Do we really need an extra wrapper? Do we need 3 levels of elements to get code highlighting working? I don't believe that that would be the case, but let's take a look at the CSS and see why this is happening. Gatsby highlight contains the background color. Float left. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're not changing the display. I'm sure we could just apply this to the pre itself. I'm going to try without that block. I like how this data language is being passed in this way, but because we're using MDX, we can just pass it in as a prop, so that's not important. Okay. So it's not just the language which is part of the code fence anymore, it's like details. So let's just call it get fence details. If there's no other language, I'm going to keep returning null. Having text as a language when you haven't returned it is nice because it makes those classes work, but it's also I think it's better to just return null, so I'm going to keep this as it is. And what we need to do, I'm already getting rid of this. Yeah, I'm going to have to change the version anyway. This is not going to be compatible with the previous version. Yeah, this is not going to be compatible with the previous version. If I fix bugs, and people might be relying on those bugs. Yeah, I'm gonna do a new version. So I'm gonna actually make a few changes here. So I'm gonna make some changes to make MDX loader match up better with Gatsby, which a lot of people are using, and then I'm gonna publish that as a new major version. Let's just get some of this out of the way, and I can add tests later when I have a bit more time. I'm not going to add line numbers, but it should support them without a major version bump. So let's add this parse numeric range package and create a new file with a function to split out those code fenced code. Let's just call it get code block options. I like that. Fence string, that's nice. Now, I believe that MDX already adds something like vent string, but I don't know. Let's take a look. So I can open up this and take a look at the element that's being returned. I'm just going to take a look here first to make sure I'm not already modifying it too heavily. Oh, so let me just copy paste this in here so I don't lose track of it. So this is the old code I was using. I'll have to remove that later. And I'm just going to use Gatsby's code to get the language and highlighted code numbers. But I'm going to call them language and highlighted code numbers instead of split language and highlighted line numbers, because I just think that's a bit easier to understand. At least I think so. I'm sure it depends on the person. So I guess each of these options in Gatsby are different, are separated by these brackets, which is different to how I do it with front-end Armory, but I'm fine with that. It's nice and simple and extensible. Okay, and so one of the things that I was doing before is I was actually applying these aliases. Gatsby doesn't do that by default, but I think these aliases really should be applied by default. I don't know if I'm using them anywhere else here. No, I'm not. So this is a good place to put Oh no, I was using them somewhere else. Because I allowed options to be passed in. So yeah, let's do it this way. Aliases. So okay. And I'm also gonna have to figure out what the fence string is, but I can do that elsewhere. So the aliases can be passed in because I want them to be configurable, which makes sense because this is used in my Create React App fork, but it can also be used separately with Webpack, so it can be configured. So I want to pass in options.aliases or aliases. Let's call that default aliases. It's easier to understand. Let's pop this back down here so I know how I get this language. Let's see how we're doing it here too. So this is rehype and this is remark, and the difference I think is that one of them is for generating is for like one of them is for walking over actual markup, and one is for walking over something else. I don't know, maybe they're the same. I'm not going to worry about that. So I need to get rid of this lang. Oh well. So what I want to know now is how is Gatsby's PrismJS thing getting... Actually, what's this? I just want to check this. I also want to check how Gatsby is finding the language. I just want to see this logic. Okay, yeah, this is a little bit different to how I do it, but right. I'm not actually using Prism directly here. I'm using Refractor, which is used internally within Prism. So this really should probably be called rehype Refractor, but never mind that. I'm not actually loading any special languages. Now I want to check if there was any issues for MDXutil while I'm working. I seem to recall that someone filed an issue about this kind of thing. Prism plugins. Here we go. Well, we're not actually using Prism. I don't even know how I can't remember how Refractor relates to Prism. I am going to have... yeah, that's not going to be a good search. Refractor and Prism. GitHub, maybe? So I could register. So the problem here is that I'm not actually using Prism. So I'm just going to, if you're using refractor core, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reply to this issue. Because I haven't got a reply anyway. Given that we're using refractor, I'm just gonna double check this. I guess this like config. There's nothing about configuration in the README. And refractor.syntax register. I could actually use Prism, I think, if it's possible to pass in like I mean, I'm already using node to string here, which means I'm not highlighting. Oh, damn it. This doesn't make any sense. I think it's just because I've copied and pasted it out of like another MDX highlighting utility and haven't thought to see if it makes too much sense. I need to do, because I'm highlighting a string, so I could probably use Prism. Here I am getting distracted by issues, but wrong Prism. Well, I'm going to need to change the Prism anyway, because it's a good thing I looked into this file. The highlight, the directives.js actually uses, no, it doesn't. It uses actions.highlight. What is actions? Pass line has these. What's pass line? Where does actions come from? Ah, okay. No, this is just a. This is independent. Yeah, so maybe I don't need Prism after all. How does this do it? Let's take another look at this. So we do load Prism language here. I think I could probably just copy this, and that would mean I wouldn't have to maintain all this separate stuff. I could basically just use Gatsby's highlighting code. So you've got load Prism language directives, Prism.js, which what do we do? Prism.highlight code, grammar languages, or language. Code is basically the same as node to string, because node to string is I think just getting the highlighted, I mean the raw content of that fenced block. Passing in language, grammar. Is there any advantage to doing it this way? Well, we can pass in configuration, maybe, and maybe I can get a nicer response to this issue. This website wasn't designed for my narrow window. So basically, as long as I'm not using MDX loader with an the browser, it's going to make sense to switch to Prism. Now that makes me think that probably the reason I'm using this in the first place is that I might be using MDXloader. No, but MDXloader is a Webpack loader. You can't use it. Let me check Front-End Armory's source. Okay, so Front-End Armory has this breadboard component, which is the live editor. It's called demo board on the website, and it supports MDX. But it's not using MDXloader. It's all separate here. In fact, it doesn't look like it's even running Prism on it, which kind of makes sense because you don't want to have to run. I mean, you don't want to have to load Prism. Okay. Oh, okay, here we go. So, I'm going to try something. Because making all of these decisions about how to implement line highlighting and Prism and all that is, you know, I mean, it's tiring, and it also doesn't make sense to make these decisions again when there's already a well-maintained package which does it. Sure, it doesn't work directly with I mean, this is a Gatsby plugin, so it's not going to be possible to just import the package and use it with Create React App, but I can certainly just copy and paste the important parts out and use them with MDXloader. So let's try that. And as a bonus, that means that if you have a Gatsby site, then you can just, you know, copy out the MDX from Gatsby and use it with MDXloader. Okay, so let's give this a try. I'm gonna be a bit quiet and try and do this. Okay, so I'm just testing now to see if this still works. And what I want to do is I want to see if MDX outputs the fence string. by itself, or if I'm going to have to pass it out of the class name like I'm doing at the moment. And I've given the file the wrong name. This is where having proper tests would come in really nice, because at the moment the way I'm testing is just restarting the dev server every time I make a change, and that takes ages. Really should add tests, but not at 10 p.m. I'll do that another day. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep working on this. Okay, so I've got it working again. And it's extracting the language correctly. I would hope it's doing this correctly. I'll check that later. I just want to figure out what is actually coming into the props here. So let's do a bit of console.logging. Class name and meter string. Now meter string is the thing I've seen before, and I was like, what's meter string? But it looks like it's empty, which is kind of odd. I'm gonna see if there's any information on this. I have no idea what that is, but I mean, it's obviously not the fence block or the language or any of that, so it's okay. I'm gonna have to find another way to get it. Maybe it's just pass it out like I was doing before. Because it doesn't seem that there's any other information about the language. And for some reason, it seems that MDX has built in the class name. I might have to... Let me take a look at this. So, yeah, if you see here, what's happened, what MDX is doing is that if you pass in a language to your code block, then that language is being passed through as a class name attribute, which I think is kind of odd because you know, if you pass through a space, then it's gonna add a whole bunch of weird classes. But think it would be nice to change that, but I'm not gonna fight that battle right now. So, whoops, wrong window. I'm gonna talk to some people about that maybe, but do that another day. For the moment, I am just going to pass it out of the language like we're doing right here. That's good. That works, and I know there's not a better way of doing it, which is really what I was just looking for now. Okay. So we have the language. We have, I assume we have highlighted line numbers. The next step is to actually use those highlighted line numbers to modify the HTML, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to use Prism yet. Actually, what I want to do is I want to replace Refractor with Prism, if possible, because I don't see why I used it in the first place, or I didn't use Prism in the first place. I think before I was probably passing, I was using Refractor to apply the sort of transformation to the AST instead of just transforming strings, but it seems like what I'm doing here is I'm transforming strings anyway. So yeah, I mean, I'm just getting the result and then transferring that directly back to a string, so I can just use PrismJS. So let's try that as well, which would allow me to give an answer to this issue, so that to make it easier to resolve that in any case. Let's try this. Okay, so start by adding PrismJS as a dependency. Then let's copy Gatsby's PrismJS code. You know what, since I'm doing a breaking version, I am just going to do this anyway. That makes it so that it'll be possible to just copy and paste markdown that's made for Gatsby into an MDXutil project. So I wasn't going to do this, but let's do this. So it looks like Gatsby has two languages. It has the normalized language, which is always going to be text and lowercase, and it has the language which is being passed to highlight code, which I guess is the language that Prism uses in the JavaScript. So this looks like there's one language for the CSS and one for the JavaScript. Yep. So I'm gonna, instead of doing that in index.js like Gatsby does, I'm gonna do that as part of get code block options. And I'm just gonna return separate Prism language and language, and I'm gonna pass in options aliases that way. I think that's just cleaner to have all of this processing of that options block in the one function. I'm gonna copy this this copyright message into here too. This one is all Gatsby. I can remove map box from this one. Okay, so we've got Prism language and we've got language. And really, language, I feel like language should be the one which is what we've specified, but how about we do language and alias to language? That's nicer. Maybe not alias language. There's a better word than aliased. Does anyone want to give me a hand in the comments with a good name for this? Canonical language? I'm going to call it canonical language. So that can be, that can apply whatever transform Gatsby is doing over here. Switch is the lowercase and then look in aliases. Let's apply default for aliases just so I don't have to check that it exists. Aliases dot, well, it's not dot, aliases language dot to lowercase. And I could make this a function. There we go. So then I can add that in. Okay, so now I have two different languages. I have the language that someone actually wrote into the block, and I also into the header of the code block, and I also have the alias language if one was specified, which is the one that I believe will pass to Prism. And that way we can specify a different language in the CSS and for the highlighting. So I can destructure that now. Pre-code. So I want to just test this again to make sure that this still works. What name do I want to add to the class? I think I want to add language instead of canonical language. But there's also the interesting thing that Prism allows you to have a different language specified for the grammar and for the highlighter. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is there. If anyone wants to explain it, I'd love to hear from you. But here we go. So we got in Gatsby, this is all done in the highlight code function. Code, grammar, language. Oh, I see. So grammar is like the actual object, and language is just the string. I don't know why you need to pass in both. That's really odd. Why would you have to pass in both? I don't know. That's just part of Prism's API, I guess. Maybe the documentation will explain. Let's have a look. So we have basic usage. Usage with node. If you want to use Prism on the server or through the command line, which is what we're doing, Prism can be used. Yeah, okay. This might be useful if you're trying to. Okay, yep. We'll load the default languages: markup, CSS, C-like, and JavaScript. You can load more languages with load languages. Why do we have to pass JavaScript and Prism.languages to JavaScript? That's what I don't get. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to say. But I guess that's okay. I'm just gonna copy what Gatsby does. I don't have to understand it because it works. So let's close some of these. I won't close this one until I've actually got it working or not got it working. Okay, let's try replacing this with Prism then, because I've already removed that. Actually, instead of doing it this way, let's do it the Gatsby way, and create a highlight code file, which I'm just gonna call it that. Load Prism. I'm just gonna copy all these files in. I think part of the reason I was using Refactor is because it did a lot of this stuff for me, but I think this is okay. Load Prism language.js. PrismJS. Okay, so this loads PrismJS, and it loads language. So I think the language aliases is the one that is being used for the CSS, and the language that is. Oh wow, this is really weird. Anyway, I'm just going to copy Gatsby for the moment. It's weird. I feel like I'm spending a lot more time actually just trying to figure out why different things are done different ways in my project in Gatsby than I'm writing code. And I am, at the end of all of this, I'm basically just going to have removed all my code and replaced it with Gatsby's code, which is you know, I guess it'll be easier to maintain in the long term if I don't have to decide what goes in here. And the code that Gatsby has seems to do a fine job of doing what it does, so why write it all again? So, and then we've got load Prism language, where we have PrismJS and package.json. We have directives, which is what actually adds all of that those line highlights. Have highlight code, which does the highlighting, and the thing I still don't get is what all of these aliases do. I mean, I had them myself, and I know from experience that not having them, a lot of code didn't work. But I haven't figured out exactly why the alias code is there yet, even after doing this kind of thing for a couple years. So maybe I should figure that out, but maybe not while I'm live streaming. Okay, so this looks like it should work. Language, code, line numbers, highlight. This is all fairly self-explanatory. Lodash. I don't think I have Lodash added just yet. I don't know. Oh, that's an interesting function. I didn't even know about this. Why are we escaping the code? I don't know, but again, I'm just going to match Gatsby's. Even if I don't necessarily like the way Gatsby is doing it, I'm just going to leave it, because again, it's just if people can copy and paste Gatsby MDX into MDXloader, then I'm happy. I don't need to investigate what Lodash does. I can just add it because I know what your Lodash does. And Lodash is probably already going to be part of any project which uses MDXloader in the build system, so it's not really adding any weight. And once Lodash has been added, code splits, handle directives. Okay, so this is that highlighting lines, code, grammar, languages. So I think the only thing that's left for the moment is to actually call highlight code. I don't have to worry about showing line numbers. I should move all these files into a separate directory. I'll do that before I publish anything. So I don't have pass line number range in my one because I have get code block options. I do have highlight code. I'm gonna add this scan this message to say where the code came from to these two files that I copied and pasted. I'm going to remove the file name too because, you know, because I got different code from all over the place being copied and pasted all over the place, and I think just putting the directory is fine. I've got to add it here. Okay. Lodash is added. Next step is to call highlight code. We can pass in highlighted line numbers and canonical language. Yeah, I'm just going to try one of them and see which one works. I still don't get the aliases thing. I need to pass in language, code, line numbers, highlight. Okay, I can do this. So basically I'm going to replace this call to refractor.highlight with a call to highlight code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace, just get the fenced, I'm just going to get code. That's the easiest thing to do, isn't it? Oh no. Okay, yeah, no. I think this is okay. I think this is okay. Node to string. Highlight code. Language, code. What are you passing in for the language? Gatsby. Language is, for them, that is the original language, not the aliased language. Not the normalized language. Canonical language and normalized. Normalized would have been such a better word. Yeah, but what they're doing is passing in language, not normalized language. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to pass in code, language, highlighted line numbers. Then I am going to replace the class with I'm going to replace this at some point with the language. Oh, I'm doing that here with the canonical language, which I am actually going to change to normalized language. Okay. And then I'm going to, instead of doing node.html, what is the result of highlight code? Final code. That's the code. I'm just going to replace that with, you know what, I can do that here. I don't know if unknown language is the error it's going to throw, but let's give this a shot. I think this might be what I want. Okay. Oh, I also need to fix that name. Okay, let's see what I have broken. Just wait for that to load. Well, this isn't right, is it? It's just giving us the language. I don't know what I've done wrong here. Highlight code is apparently not returning the highlighted code. It's apparently returning the language. Oh dear. Okay, let's see what I've done wrong. It's a fun mistake though. What did this look like before? Because this is a visitor, so I'm not actually having to return anything. I'm just setting this. I bet it's code. I'm gonna have to watch the console because the thing I've just logged is gonna appear and then disappear for a bit. So is the oh well, the code's correct. That's a start. So what's the value of highlight code? Is this in the wrong order? That could be it. Language code. There we go. Not as strange a bug as I thought it was. Okay, let's wait and see if Prism highlighting works. Yep, it does. Cool. So I want to actually play around with this a bit and see if I can break it, since I haven't got tests. So first I'm going to change the language to something that doesn't exist. Oh, okay, so that's good. And I'm going to change the language to no language. And that works too. Then I'm going to get rid of the highlighted line, and that works too. Nice. So let's go back to this. Now, have I got markup for my highlighted line? That's the next thing I'm interested in seeing. So let's take a look at the inspector. So we've got pre-language JSX. Now I need to fix this. Have I got highlighted lines? I don't have highlighted lines yet, so that's something I'm going to have to add or to fix. But it's a good start. So let's take a look at what highlighted line numbers is, because I think that's the next stop to getting these line highlights working. So I'd been putting off getting these line highlights working because I knew it was just going to be a pain in the ass, but it'll be good to have them working. And yeah, Okay, so that's an empty array. So line highlights aren't coming through, and they are in my code. So why is that? I think the first place to look is here. Highlighted line numbers. Huh, didn't get called at all. Event string dot split. This length is more than 1, which it should be, unless I'm already getting rid of that somewhere else on accident. That's worth taking a look at. I am. Oops. Okay, this is the next thing to try. So there's just give me line highlight markup. Even if it does, the markup's not styled yet, but let's just take a look. Nope. Now, I do think that part of the reason it's not doing this might be that the markup isn't actually part of the code. No, actually, no, that's not the case. I remember now. So let's just see if... Let's go back here and see if it's extracting that information from the fence language. I really must add tests so I don't have to like wait for the build process every single time. Nope, but at least it logged. Wait, that could be a different log though. No, I think that's the right one. The trick here would be to log the options, right? That'll do it. Alright, I'm gonna change this class while I'm waiting to line. Highlighted line. Oh, this is interesting. The final line has kind of lost its formatting, and the reason for that is that we've got this highlighted line thing here. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I'm going to need to actually fix the styling on this now. And yeah, I think that's okay, because this is only going to be a problem if you actually add highlighted lines, and if you do, you're going to need to add styling to make them work. So yeah, this is good. We are getting somewhere. I can just get rid of that console.log. Now I just want to fix one thing before I add the highlighted line, though, is that I want to make sure that I'm not passing through the highlighted lines in the classes. So I'm getting close to the end of this. So and it's taking me a little while to do each step now. So here I have, this is where the actual stuff that we're outputting is. So what I want to do is actually log. Oh, I see what's happening. Where for some reason we're modifying the parent's properties even though we're getting the language from the current one. So if parent or parent.tag name is not equal to pre, or node.tag name is not equal to code. Basically what we're saying is we only want to apply this to the code block. But I think I was doing this to the wrong one. Okay, let's try this. And then try console.log. No. So this should only be applied to the code blocks. I just want to see. Okay, let's see what the produced JSX is like. So I think what I want to do is actually modify the pre and code components on the layout and just log the props so I can see what's being passed through. And once this is done, I think it will just be a matter of refactoring it. Language JSX, and the pre no longer has a language, which is I think the behavior we want, because yeah, I mean if the pre contains a code, then you can still check the language that way. So this is good. This is good. Now I probably also want to add some data attributes, and I don't know how to do that with raw JSX, which is embarrassing for someone who wrote a course on raw React, but let's look it up. Defining node attribute props. Nope. I think I can do it this way. So what I want to do is add a node.properties dot data language, and a node.properties data highlighted line numbers. Let's try this and see if we get some extra props. Ooh, almost 11. I'm gonna go to midnight and that's it. Okay, yeah, we have our data attributes. Beautiful. So I think it's time to do some, well, time to finish things off. So to do a little bit of refactoring here and add the styles for the line highlights. So let's start by adding the styles for the line highlights. Now it looks like I don't actually need these because I'm not doing this dynamically anymore. I was thinking at the start of doing it dynamically, but I'm doing it as part of MDXloader. So yeah, it should be okay to not use these. Now to do the styles, there is one other thing I'm supposed to do, which is add an extra class to the pre, I think. Because if you have a look at how Gatsby does it again, they have this extra Gatsby highlight thing that they wrap it with. I have also num lines. That's numbered line style, not highlighted lines, I see. Yeah, so I just want to add. Do I? I mean, do I really want to add an extra class to the pre? Probably not. Maybe I need one wrapped around it, but this is something that you could do really well with the components property of a JSX, an MDX component. So, yeah, I'm just gonna use this. I'm not gonna add this. Sorry. Okay, so let's add those styles. So let's use overreacted.io styles. Oops. Hey, look at that. We've got a line highlight. I am very happy with that. And we didn't need to wrap it in any extra code at all. It just works. Woohoo! So I am going to move code listing highlights on my list over to the done section, and let's commit this. Actually, I won't commit it just yet because I really should publish that new version of MDXloader first. Okay, let's do that. It's the last thing I'm going to do tonight. I'm just going to do a little bit of refactoring here. I'm going to put the Prism related code into a separate directory. I'm going to reply to this issue, which I'm going to say that I've done some refactoring to make it easier to implement, but I don't have any way to pass options yet because I don't know what specific options they want to pass in. And I am going to publish that new version of MDXloader before committing all these changes, pushing it, and then calling it a night. Okay, so let's get started. So let's create a Prism directory for all this. Okay, I think that should work. Let's just start it up again and take a look. Okay, this looks good. Let's try and get rid of these as well. These messages. Okay, that's done. happy with all this. What's the latest version of MDX? Let's see if we can update our packages, our package versions along with the loader. 16.6. Yeah, I think this is okay. Next up. You know what? I don't think I need to do a major version for this because I might do a minor version. PrismJS, I'm not even using that. I'm not using node to HTML. I can get rid of hashed. Can I? Let's try. Let's take a look. Get rid of this. That was only there because of the way I had it set up before. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so this all works. Now it's just up to decide whether to use a major version bump or a minor version bump. Now, I think to be safe, it's probably best to use a major version bump. But the only thing that has changed is the code block, or the extra reading time export, which is not going to break anything. It's just an extra feature. But also the code block thing. Sorry about that. So, this is the only thing I'm really worried about. But I still have aliases. I have the same default aliases, which are passed in from here. It still have the same configuration options. I still pass in the same language. I still do the same highlighting. You know what? I mean, I think I'm safe to do a minor version bump, so I'm just gonna do that. Major version bump is scary. Let's do this. Yep. I'm certainly not going to cause anything to break. Unless people are using really weird undocumented hacks. Here we go. And I guess my next thing is going to be adding tests to this. Now, if I open up the Navi example again. Now this is using create React app MDX. So I'm going to have to update that too. But I think for the moment I can probably just add it to this to update the version. Let's try. And I'm gonna open up Create React App MDX. Get ready to do a release of that, which takes a little bit of time. Let's take a look and see if Create React App has had any updates in the meantime. Nope. Oh, of course I'm looking at the wrong one. I want to look at React scripts. I wonder what the latest, that was released 12 days ago. I'm going to have a look at this. So Create React App has this wonderful change log which tells you everything that's changed in a nice format. Oh, this is a big change because they've merged the Webpack configuration. This is going to take a bit of testing to make sure I've got this right, so I don't want to just release a new version right now. I mean, I've already tested it, but and integrated this change, but I'm going to have to do a proper job. Okay, I'm going to call it a night then, because it's getting kind of late, and I've done most of what I wanted to get done. I've managed to get the line highlighting working, and it's just a matter of merging that new version of, oh, well, it's not working here. But yeah, it's just a matter of merging that new version of MDX loader into Create React MDX and releasing a new version. So I can do that tomorrow. Yep. Anyway, but yeah, I'll push. I won't push the code that I've done with the line highlighting just yet because it uses. No, I will, because it doesn't actually use any of those. No, I won't, because of the reading time thing. No, I will, because it's not going to break. It's still going to work without those new features. So, let's just push through these changes. And here we go. So what's left here is to double check the document styles, do this refactoring, and publish. I've actually done this as well. I've published a new version of MDXloader, and all that's left is to bump the version of MDXloader and create React app in React scripts MDX. Sorry. Publish a new version, and then that should all work. So there we go. That's it for me tonight. Thanks for watching. I hope it's been interesting or useful in some way. And yeah, if you have any comments or you'd like to see me stream coding on anything else, then send me a message on Twitter. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.